Hi, I'm Steve Mullins from Norton, Virginia, and welcome to my rather messy library. It needs some work, and I apologize, but I wanted to offer some thoughts about the 2008 election now that it's over. I was a Barack Obama supporter. In fact, early on, I was a Joe Biden supporter, so I was quite pleased that Barack chose Mr. Biden, Senator Biden, as his running mate. But some thoughts about this so that you know where I'm coming from. Over the years, I've supported a number of Republican and Democratic candidates, especially for president. I was something of a Reaganite, and then in his second term, I became a little disappointed with him and his administration. Bush 41 was okay, and then I was something of a Clintonite. I was ready for a big change in the early 90s. Then in 2000, I was a little concerned about Al Gore. Every stump speech that I heard him give, he talked about either spending more federal money or creating more federal programs to deal with the problems. And I was just uncomfortable with that. I think if Democrats make a mistake, they can sometimes go too far that way. So I was willing to give George W. Bush and the Republicans a chance. Boy, what a big mistake that was. And what alerted me to the fact that this was a mistake has to do primarily with Iraq. There are other factors, but our invasion of Iraq and subsequent military occupation is something that has really bothered me since then. Initially, just like everyone else in the United States, just about everyone else, well, except for Barack Obama, one might say, I thought it was a good idea. We had already gone after the Taliban and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan. That made sense. That was something everyone could get behind because we knew that Osama bin Laden was behind this. Al Qaeda was behind the tragedies of 9/11. Well, after Afghanistan and we went into Iraq, the reasons given, if you go back and re-listen to Colin Powell speaking before the United Nations or the Bush administration talking about our reasons for going into Iraq to oust Saddam Hussein, to take over his regime. The reasons were primarily two. First, that Saddam Hussein was stockpiling and getting ready to use weapons of mass destruction. He had them already. And of course, there are three under the category of weapons of mass destruction: chemical, biological, and nuclear. We'd already seen him use chemical weapons against the Iranians. And nuclear weaponry, though, that's the one that we were the most concerned about, as we should be. The second reason was this alleged connection between the Saddam regime and Al Qaeda, members of Al Qaeda, that he was something of a state sponsor of terror. And perhaps the insinuation was, behind the scenes, perhaps Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11. Well, after we went in and defeated the Iraqis and eventually helped them to set up their own parliamentary style government, there wasn't any evidence for that. That's when I realized that I could never vote for another Republican to be in our White House again because of the Bush, Cheney, Karl Rove machine and how they had deceived us. Now, I won't go so far as to say that the Bush administration lied to the American people. We may eventually find out that they did, but there's not enough evidence to support that. However, we can say that they probably cherry-picked the intelligence reports coming from the CIA and the Department of Defense. They were looking for reasons to evade Iraq. And when the executive branch of your government either starts lying to you or starts cherry-picking intelligence reports in order to carry out a military occupation that probably for a hidden agenda, I imagine oil is part of that, when they start doing that, you can't trust them. And so the Bushies have totally made me never to go into the booth again and vote for a Republican. On the other hand, Barack Obama and Joe Biden seem to me to be the kinds of politicians that we can trust and we can depend on. The one thing about Obama that I really like, having read his book, The Audacity of Hope, is that he may be a liberal. Yes, he's a liberal Democrat, but he's not an ideologue. An ideologue is someone who takes their ideology and pushes it through regardless of the facts presented before them. And Barack is no ideologue. People on the far left will say that the Obama administration has not gone far enough, will not go far enough. But the people on the very far left, tend to be on the fringe. And a lot of those are socialists. The pundits and the politicians and the commentators and on the far right are also going to be critical of him, primarily because he's not far right. I mean, they think that anything to the left of them is socialist, Marxist, communist. That's great rhetoric, but it doesn't hold up to the realities of politics. Barack is a liberal, but I think we'll see that his administration will be a fairly centrist administration. We'll see how the cabinet goes and who he picks. But for the first time in a long time, I actually have hope for the future. Our government, our executive branch has totally made me jaded and cynical for the Bush years, the 8 years of George Bush's administration. And not only was it time for a change, it was a time to elect a Democrat into the White House. Now, we've given the Bush administration their chance. And I wish all those on the far right, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Crystal, Rush Limbaugh, all these folks, and the editorial staff of the Wall Street Journal and the Weekly Standard, I wish you would give Obama a chance. We gave George Bush a chance. The neocons had their opportunity. And now we're involved in 2 wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan. The financial markets have tightened. We have a financial crisis. Wall Street is in trouble. And I can't see that laissez-faire economic theory has really helped us a lot. So at this time, as Obama takes office coming up in January, times will be tough, I'm sure. But I'm hoping that we will see slowly but surely progress made toward shoring up our economy and toward regaining the position we had in the world in the years before the Bush administration managed to tarnish it. Thanks for listening.